again here, and I'm actually really pleased to have this amazing woman with me, and her name is Dr. Denise Tsoiafatt Angus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, she has an amazing title, so I'm just going to let her say what her title is.
Well, I am the Secretary with responsibility for community development and culture in the Tobago House of Assembly as part of the country of Trinidad and Tobago. I have been appointed to that position as a councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly, not as an elected member, but as a councillor.
That's amazing. See, I couldn't have said any better than that. So tell us, how did you get in? Tell us a little bit about yourself first, where you started in all of this, and if it's something you ever wanted to do.
This was not in my cards when
I know exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely not. I grew up with a science background. I mean, both my parents were pharmacists, and when I began school, I studied medicine. In fact, I did pharmacy first, and then I became a medical doctor. I practiced for about close to 15 years.
That's amazing.
And then I hung up my stethoscope about 4 years ago, 6 years, close to 6 years, 4 to 6 years ago, when I first became the advisor to the Secretary of Health and Social Services there. And about 18 months ago, as part of the elections in the Tobago House of Assembly, when we were successful in January 2013, I was appointed as the councillor and secretary with responsibility for community development and culture. So
nice.
It has been a long road, a journey, but I am certainly enjoying it so far.
I'm going to ask you this. Did you always want to be in the medical field?
Yes, I think growing up I always wanted to be in the medical field. I had a friend of the family who was a medical doctor there, and I was totally inspired by the way he practiced medicine, treated patients, the human touch, and I knew that I wanted to be a doctor.
What about the political part of it? Did you have anything? I know families growing up are always somehow politically influenced, like I was.
Absolutely not. I was nowhere around politics. I mean, after I got into politics, my mother told me that my grandfather was heavily involved in politics.
So you have it in your
At
blood.
some point, he was years and years ago, the chairman of the Tobago House of Assembly, but I had never discussed politics with them or getting into it. But I think there comes a point in your life where you begin to see things in a different way. And I certainly began to see not just medicine, but Tobago on a whole, and in terms of treating persons say, how do you go from medicine to community development and culture? And I said, in medicine you treat sick people and you make them well, at least you attempt to. In community development and culture, you work with well people and you attempt to make them prosper and progress in their lives. And that's how I equate it. But certainly I believe that my medical training, being up all day and nights, being on call, has given me the edge for being responsible for culture.
And patience.
Because, yes, and patience, but in culture, I always tell my colleagues, I said in culture, it is the daytime and nighttime division. I have to do the work by day, but at nighttime I also have to be out there supporting the culture, which most often occurs within the evening hours. So
I know exactly what you mean. It's the same thing happens with us, doing what we're doing, trying to bridge the communities.
yeah,
You don't see home much.
no.
You don't cook much anymore.
That's correct. That's correct.
You don't cook
And
much.
I'm not ashamed to say that. It's
Me
really
either.
tough. There's some things you have to give up, and that has been one of them that I've given up so far.
If you could define what the House of Assembly does, Because I know, what is the role there? I know it's a very simple question, but you said you were appointed as opposed to elected. Is that correct?
Right. The Tobago House of Assembly is governed by an act of 1996. That's the most recent act that we had. The first one was in 1980, and that was amended in 1996. And the Tobago House of Assembly now is about 33 years old, and we are responsible for the management and strategic direction of the affairs in Tobago. And that is an act coming out of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, it does have some significant restrictions. It allows us under what we call the 5th schedule to take care of many of the areas in Tobago. But under the 6th and 7th schedules, those are areas where the government of the Trinidad and Tobago is responsible for, and also their shared responsibility under the 6th schedule. So on a day-to-day basis, we pretty much manage business in Tobago. And you know that many of the countries now, they are, we just had Scotland,
Yes.
with their voting, the yes versus no. We have the history of Quebec right here in Canada. And Tobago is also going through its quest for self-governance, greater autonomy. And I don't want people to misconstrue that, to feel that Tobago wants independence or secession or separation from Trinidad. We don't want to separate. We want to continue within the unitary status of the Twin Island Republic. However, we do believe that we should be given more powers to be able to deal with our own internal business. And over the last few years, in fact, this fight started a zillion of years ago with persons like A.P.T. James, and then you had the late A.N.R. Robinson, who would have picked up the fight, and he would have gotten us in the initial stages that the Tobago House of Assembly. But now we are saying that it is time for us to have more powers to deal with our business. Take, for instance, we don't have the power to do loans on our own. That has to be vetoed by the Ministry of Finance, and every Minister of Finance so far has told us, no, you cannot borrow. And that has serious implications for our rate of development as a people.
So what you're saying is basically that you see there's a project out there that you believe in your community development, for example, that's what it's worth. There is a benefit, but you have to go through the red tape.
Correct.
Doesn't matter how passionate you are, you see the need for it, you have to go through, and chances are of it becoming a yes or a no.
Correct. If we want to borrow money to get it done quickly, you have to go through the red tape, and many times you will be told no. And so what we have been forced to do is that every day that we get our budgetary allocations, we have to try and put aside monies. It's like when you get your house, you have monies coming into the house, you want to do something new, you have to take some money away from some of the other things you're accustomed doing, and put that money aside, and then purchase what you want to do. And so that is pretty much.
So you don't
what
have
we've
extra
been
money.
doing.
You can't ask for extra money most of the time.
There's no extra money coming to us. Once they give us that 4.03% minimum, there's no extra money coming to us. Whereas the central government, on a lot of occasions, have gone back on the midterm review and received additional allocations. The Tobago House of Assembly has not received that favor.
So how do you see? Is there, you believe, and not to put you on the spot here, is there a solution that you think will work, in the sense of how do you go forward with this? There got to be changes. There got to be something. I mean, what can be done? What do you think can be done to make it a little bit easier for you all? Who, I mean, it's two separate islands, by the way, just to make sure, make it very clear.
Unique cultures.
Very unique. You're basically tourism.
Different way of, yes.
You basically live off tourism
island.
and the culture and so forth,
Yes.
which we saw yesterday. The
Yes.
culture is amazing, and you
Yes.
preserve that culture very
Yes.
well. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
But at the same time, yes, Trinidad has, everything else. Let's concentrate on Tobago. What the difference? What do you think the difference is in Tobago and Trinidad in terms of, how we survive? I mean, you guys are pretty much limited.
You find ways of surviving, and that's how you build the resilience of your people. But at some point, you need to go beyond resilience. And I think at this point, Tobagonians on a whole would like to have more powers to manage their own business. And I believe it's about 6 years ago, some new consultations would have been started again on the issue of greater autonomy for Tobago. Various persons would have been part of groups, teams, committees, secretariats. A number of them would have gone through the various communities and gathered information and consensus about how people feel, what they see as greater autonomy, what are some of the areas that they want to point to. And some of the areas that they looked at is that people were very adamant that we have to define the borders of Tobago according to international standards. What would be the borders for islands residing side by side. And therefore, if we do that, then the resources that are now supporting the country, the oil and gas and those various resources, persons perhaps can identify that many of those resources now are coming from Tobago's waters. Now, it's not that we are going to say, well, these are our resources and therefore, this stays within Tobago. But we want an acknowledgement that some of those resources are indeed coming from Tobago, and it is not just the taxes that we collect in Tobago that are considered to be our contribution to the GDP. And that we would be, persons, from the government side would recognize that yes, some of that oil and gas revenue is indeed coming from Tobago. So we perhaps need to have another look at the allocation that Tobago is getting. A number of years ago, you had the Dispute Resolution Commission that had come together and made some decisions on how much money the Tobago House of Assembly should be receiving from the Trinidad and Tobago central government. And they came up with a range from 4.03% to 6.9%.
That's huge for you. That's a huge increase.
But no, they said that is the range that we should be paid within. No administration has ever paid us 6.9%, and all of them have come in at least 4.03% every single time.
But what I'm saying too is there were difference between the 4 and the 6.9%. That will help tremendously.
It will.
It sounds like a minimal amount, like a small amount, but in dollars it adds up.
It will, but they have never gotten to that point. They've always kept it at 4.03%. And the Dispute Resolution Commission was clear that 4.03% or any allotment of that has to be to the Tobago House of Assembly. Now, what the current government has done is that they have provided additional monies to different divisions doing things, different ministries doing things in Tobago, and counted that as part of the Tobago's allocation. And according to the Dispute Resolution Commission, that would not that does not apply.
So let me make sure I understand this. Everyone understands this. The 4.0% is for the House of Assembly to run the country.
4.03% to run
To
the
run
island.
the country
The
annually.
island, correct.
However, they would then go and give other areas individually
Yes.
sums of money to run that,
Sums of money to do different things in Tobago. And
which is not
sometimes-
managed by the government.
Which is not managed by the government
So you
in
have
Tobago.
you cannot do anything about it.
Right.
So you have and say, okay, is the money going in the right place, in the
Correct.
right hands? And I'm going to be
Right.
honest, if it's going to the right contractors or people or who can put it to the
Well,
best use.
Is it going in the right direction of the policy that has been set up by the governing body responsible for policy on the island? You know, is it going in the right areas of priorities in terms of what we have determined is paramount in developing the island at the rate we want it to develop? And you know, to some extent it has caused some conflict because there have been parallel programs being run, but we are going to get through that because recently, within the last 2 weeks, last Sunday, week before Sunday, convention was held that was the culmination of a series of meetings with various sectors: the community sector, the cultural sector, the business sector, the farming sector, fishing, tourism, where persons were brought in and again asked, how do you see autonomy for yourselves within your sector? How do you see that playing out? And at the convention last Sunday, more than 500 persons attended and unanimously voted to empower the group led by the Honorable Orville London, the Chief Secretary of Tobago, and he's also partnered with the previous Chief Secretary, Mr. Ho Charles, from another party, and the Tobago Platform of Truth, and of course the chairman of the People's National Movement. And the people voted unanimously to empower them to go further in taking Tobago's quest to the next level. They are now in discussions as to how they're going to be moving themselves forward with this mandate. And it's quite unfortunate because we've been asking for political parties to take off their hat and for Tobago to speak with one voice. And in the initial stages, it did appear that we were going to achieve that goal when you had the leader of the Tobago Organization of the People, Mr. Ashford Jack, who is also part of that tripartite group. And after the first meeting, he just did not return. So it was the Chief Secretary, Mr. Orville London, and Mr. Ho Charles as the two leaders who are speaking with one voice. They have made a pact that they intend to come together to make sure that Tobago achieves self-government, given that the fact that they do both recognize that we have to speak with one voice as a Tobagonian. And after you've achieved self-government, they said that then they will fight to see who will manage, who will be the one in charge to govern. But that's a joke between them, and I think it's certainly admirable that leaders can put aside their political hats and personal agendas to collaborate for the future of the island.
Absolutely.
And they must be applauded for that.
Absolutely, and that's amazing because there have to be collaboration, put the differences aside. Let's talk a little bit about Tobago itself. Tell us a little bit about Tobago, the size, the population. Tell us a little bit about Tobago, because we don't know what Tobago is. I mean, I know what Tobago is. I was there actually 2 years ago. It's the first time, and I really had a blast on that.
Tobago is a beautiful island, richly blessed, with people full of charisma and a rich culture that is very intriguing and amazing. The island is blessed with not only beautiful beaches from shore to shore, and in areas that you you know, you can't, I mean, I've grown up there and there's some areas that I'm seeing for the first time and saying, wow, you know, there's so many beautiful beaches there. We have the rainforest. We are voted actually one of the oldest rainforests in the world, and we actually got an award for that.
Very nice.
We have a lot of waterfalls and very hidden waterfalls throughout the island. It's only 116 square miles, and about between 55 and 60,000 persons residing on the island. And in addition to the of course, the beaches, the waterfall, the rainforest, we have the natural fauna and flora, birds, multiple species of birds. We have persons there studying the multiple species from time to time. We have the most beautiful coral reefs around the world. We have at least the Buku Reef and the Speyside Reef, so divers love to come by. And
what about Nyland Pool?
Yes, and also the Nyland Pool.
Tell us a bit about that. That's the only place you can actually go in the middle of the ocean.
Yes.
And stand up and swim.
It looks like a pool, crystal clear water, no waves.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
My kids were actually swimming in there.
Yeah.
I was actually throwing up on the boat that time. My kids were actually swimming there. That's amazing to know you'll be in the middle of the ocean. It is.
And of course, there's also our heritage of the forts across the island.
Yes, I saw that.
And we have a history of being fought over 32 times by different countries around the world. I think it's the most any island has ever been fought over. And you know, sometimes you ask yourself why, but when you come to the island and you look around, you get your answer as to the why.
Can you see the passion in this woman's eyes when she talks about this country? I mean, this little country, it's small, but it doesn't have to, you don't have to be part of a big city to appreciate what you have. Let's talk a little bit about tourism. Let's talk about exporting tourism and the culture. And based on the experience we had yesterday with that event that you came out to, and tell us a little bit about that, because I think we need to expose that more.
Well, I think when Dr. Eric Williams led the country into independence, he recognized, and I must appreciate the man for this, it's great insight, that the richest part of anything that people have is their culture.
That's true.
And he put a program in place called the Best Village Program, and it was a competition, Best Village competition.
Every Wednesday night.
Yes, and that's essentially what it was. Every village find to be the best they can be, and a competition. And you had various segments, you know, clean communities, clean gardens, clean homes, dancing, drumming, food, you name it, they were involved in that Best Village competition. And for years, Tobago actually took part in that competition and won many of the prizes in many of the categories. In fact, one of the last prizes that the group in Pembroke participated, they are rich in, the people in the East are rich in culture, the dancing and the drumming. And the Pembroke village would have entered the Best Village competition, and they actually won significant sum of money back then. I think it was about $250,000, and they wanted to build the Pembroke Village, Heritage Village within their communities. And so when they brought back that monies committed towards that project, because I think they also had, once you won the money, it had to be committed to a project within your community. So even that was about helping persons to use the culture to develop their communities.
And be very proud of it too as well.
Yes. And so when they came back and they realized 250,000 was not going to be enough. And they approached the Tobago House of Assembly. Tobago House of Assembly partnered with them, and their dream was realized. The Pembroke Heritage Facility is there. And so that was a great accomplishment for them. Now, about 27 years ago, we had Dr. J.D. Elder in Tobago, well known across the region and internationally at that, for his vast knowledge and passion in the area of culture. And he would have, along with some of his colleagues, would have begun the Tobago Heritage Festival in Tobago. The first year we began with a conference, and in the second year they actually put on this show, which is a reenactment of some of the traditions, the practices and values that our ancestors, incorporated and inculcated in their lives.
Nice.
And so what we would have done is that 2 weeks out of every year, we sort of almost pause to go from community to community and see their expressions of what their ancestors used to
amazing.
do. It is amazing. And we got so many communities involved that last year we had gotten up to a month. It went from 2 weeks to 3 weeks to a whole month.
So the country stopped?
The
country literally stopped for a whole month?
Yes. So last year when I came in, I made a decision that we will continue with 2 weeks of the festival. And so the others will now be moved out throughout the year. So instead of celebrating all of your heritage in 1 month, we will have 2 weeks for persons like yourselves who would like to travel and spend some time with us. So you come home for a few weeks, 2 weeks, and you will experience the festival. But throughout the year, at least once a month, you can find on a weekend once a month where, a community is expressing itself. And let me give you an idea. We would normally do the opening gala, which gives a snippet of what is happening in just about every community, how it is going to be expressed. And then you have, of course, the Queen Show. You can't have a Best Village competition without a Queen Show. And of course, the Heritage Festival, the only competition we have in the Heritage Festival is the Queen Show and the Calypso competition. Others are just showcasing the culture, and that's the difference between that and the Best Village competition. But apart from that, we go to the village. Take for instance Black Rock. Black Rock is a seaside village, and so their expression is about how they used to christen the boat. So and bless the boat before they go out to catch the fish.
So each village has a theme?
Each village does their expression, right.
Which is like a theme?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Black Rock, they will bless the boat and then send the boat out to sea, and they then encourage the villagers and the persons there to participate in pulling the seine back in and gathering the fish that would have been caught.
I actually know about that,
Yes.
when I was growing up in
Yes.
Mayaro in Trinidad.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
And then they would have a little cultural show in the evening. And then you have Charlottesville. Charlottesville is known, they have a fort, and so they go to the fort and they trek from the fort down into the town. And on the way down, they go to the riverside, and you have a washing by the river reenactment of what would happen when somebody died, and they washed by the river, they washed the linen by the river, and they moved from there, and you got to the point where you can dance the cocoa. They still have an old cocoa house there, and at that time they open it up and they bring in cocoa and they show you how they used to dance the cocoa there, and they would mix you some cocoa tea so you can taste the cocoa also. And so that is quite a good, an experience for the whole day. They also take you out to the beautiful island. I think one of the beaches in the alcove there, so you can do a treasure hunt.
Oh, cool.
So you pretty much spend the day in Charlottesville. And let's go back to Swam, our Mary's Hill, Spring Garden area, Union area, and they do the bongo, wake and bongo. So what you see there is the reenactment of when people died long ago, what would happen. How did the community come together to take care of the family and to bury the dead? And so you have the wake, where they sing a lot of songs the night before to help
Yes,
the
I know.
person send off, and the dancing of the bongo in as part of that. And you know, it just, then Plymouth expresses, because I mean, Carnival was not just about Trinidad. Carnival was about coming up through the resistance period,
Yes.
and everyone, you know, finding a way to express themselves within that resistance. So we had Carnival as part of our heritage too, and so you have the old time Carnival at that point.
All mass type of carnival.
All mass kind
All
of,
mass.
yes. All
It's
mass.
not all commercialized. I really appreciate what you're saying, simply because just listening to you brings back some memories too
Yes.
as well. But we want people to know it's not all about the sand and the beach.
No.
There's a lot
There's a
more
lot
you can
more.
actually explore and
Yes.
actually, I can't think of the word right now, but get involved and
Feel.
learn and
Living
feel.
the culture.
That's
Live
it.
the culture with the people.
Live the cultures, how things were back. Because again, all this Tobago or North America, there are traditions.
Yes.
There are traditions, just different ways of doing it. And it actually is nostalgic, as we talk about how to get back and feel that feeling again,
Yes.
and feel like you're living. Because I'm listening to you, Denise, and I'm like, I'm just thinking, my goodness, have I missed a lot? It's like,
Yes.
and it's not, there is somewhere, and I'm sure you're not the only island doing this, but the passion here, we can go back and actually live again
Yes.
and take our kids. Let's just spin here for a bit, talking about the youth and talking about all this culture and that you're preserving it. But yet, my generation, my kids, and everybody else kids out there don't know about these things. What are you all doing to put that exposure, to export it, to expose it? Like, how can we, what can we do to bring people who they've moved on and out to come back and pass the tradition on, preserve it?
Well, and you know, you're talking about preserving, and it comes to mind, you know, that marriage tradition, the Moriah, the flagship of our Heritage Festival is the Moriah wedding. And you actually have a wedding procession, people going into a church, a little church in Moriah getting married, and then the whole community comes together in a procession that then goes to the area of the feast. And that too is amazing.
Or
But
maybe
when
that's why marriages would last longer if they have something like that to be on,
perhaps,
because
and they
comes-
dance the brush back. They explain to
The
you.
brush back?
Yes, the brush back is a particular dance you do during the wedding. They carry the linen on the head in a chest, and the breadfruit on the head, and
Love
they tell you
breadfruit.
the meaning of the different things, why they carry them, for the longevity of the marriage and for patience and tolerance and all of these things. But you know, you raise a point. How do we're doing it for ourselves, but how do we get the rest of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago and perhaps the Caribbean, because we do have similarities in the way we do things, to keep connected with their heritage, especially when you have many of them who cannot travel as much as they would love to travel back home. They cannot. And so when I came into office, I said to my folks, I said, listen, you know, we have to deal with preservation of the indigenous culture first and foremost, because that is like gold.
It's storytelling too.
It's like gold,
Yeah.
you know. Many, you know, there's heritage tourism is now a buzzword, and we certainly have that. But as part of preservation, it's a cycle of education, gaining experience, you know, doing the little programs elsewhere. We teach within the communities. We make sure tutors now become certified. You also have the awareness, right? And that awareness is at our Heritage Festival, where you make young people aware of what is going on with their heritage. And now those who have learned can now practice during the festival. But then you also have promotion. And promotion is where we have been paying attention to, that we are now intentionally taking it into other communities outside of Tobago. Because I feel that when our young people travel, and you know, just like last night, and they came out and they performed for their brothers and sisters outside of the island.
And it was an amazing performance, a truly amazing.
Yeah.
How many of them actually? How many groups came up?
They're one group. There were 17. There were about 17, 16 performers.
Because that was a lot of dancing.
16
So
performers.
they did a lot of different routines
Yes.
there and different.
Yes.
And you
And
also
what
had
we
singers. And you also
Right.
had.
What we did, we made sure we chose persons who were multi-skilled.
Yes. Oh, they were
They
multi-skilled.
were not just dancers, you know, and because many of them now are out tutoring today. So many of them were our tutors who are also dancers. The singers could sing calypso. One of the singers is actually a calypsonian.
Okay.
Yes, in her own right. And of course, the drummers, the panists, had to also do other things. He played the shak shak after he played the pan. So we asked for persons to be multi-skilled. Two of the persons, one is a storyteller, who was the aunt,
Yes.
and the young person who was studying,
that's
she was
hilarious, by the
actually,
way.
she's actually a dancer and a tutor, but she was able to dramatize. So, you know, it was great that we can put that together. But that is what it is about now, exporting the culture. Because, you know, once we export the culture and we promote it, it then comes back to us.
Absolutely.
It comes back to us. And I strongly believe that, you know, promoting it outside of Tobago to persons who, for one reason or another, have not been able to come back, that you keep them connected, and therefore when they can travel, hopefully they will see Tobago as the destination for them to come back even more so and connect with that heritage culture.
Actually, it's funny you should say that because I have a few friends who are from Trinidad, but they love Tobago and they prefer to reside or retire in Tobago. And that for me last night was truly, it was a long event.
Yeah.
However, it was something that, again, opened my eyes up to a lot that was missing in my life and hopefully the kids. And even seeing some of the calypsonians and the music and the live parang and everything else that went with it. And we had some like Lord Nelson was there, and there's just so many different people. But they were talking about their memories, bringing back their memories
Yes.
for the past 100 years,
Yes.
and that's what it was all about.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Shane Supol. I am the principal mortgage broker at Avanti Financial Services. We're a full-service mortgage brokerage company. We're available on the net at www.avanti-financial.com. We're also available on a 1-800 number. It's 1-866-839-4449. We can assist you with all your mortgage financing needs, as we have relationships with over 25 institutional as well as a ton of private individuals to assist with your needs, whether your credit has been bruised or whether you have very good credit. We can assist you, as I said, with all your financial needs. Remember, my name is Shane Supol, 1-866-839-4449.
The Deanne and You Show puts a spotlight on Canadian entrepreneurship and includes a wide demographic to showcase the success and struggles in developing a new business. Come and explore new Canadian business through our conversations with you. The Deanne and You Show is the beacon of Canadian entrepreneurship.
So we were chatting a little bit about, you know, people who were brought up in Trinidad and Tobago, and we've left, and we miss a lot of the culture. That's why you're still there in Tobago, to bring the culture to us and to showcase it to us.
Yes.
And talk about it with the passion that you're talking about right
Yes.
now, Denise.
Yeah.
You can see it. So let's talk about that. What we can do. Again, we keep talking about the exposure. We keep coming back to the exposure part of it.
But I think it is, identifying the areas where you have large numbers of Tobagonians, and by extension Trinidad and Tobagonians and Caribbean people living outside of their islands and their countries. And recently we also went to New York, New York Fashion Week, and that was something new for them to marry fashion with culture, fashion with Trinidad and Tobago's culture, and more so Tobago's culture, was truly an amazing feat.
Let me ask you about that. How did they manage that in terms of, are you talking about in terms of garments and dress? It doesn't have to be the traditional white dress, be the actual cultural garments.
Many people tell us that in studying fashion now, they recognize that persons, wherever they grew up, wherever they live, it influences the type of fashion. It influences the patterns that they use, the lightness of the material, the flowing material, or the stiff material. And we happen to have two designers on the show who had already entered on their own initiative to the New York Fashion Week. And then when we connected with New York Fashion Week, we understood they were there, and they agreed that we can provide a cultural segment to highlight the country more as part of the fashion show. So those two designers, one actually had a lot of flowing material, white material, and she came out with one of the, I believe, the Trinidad and Tobago queens, whether it was Miss Universe or Miss World, who was dressed in a carnival costume with feathers and all that as the initial. And prior to that, we would have done a pre-show for them. And while she was showing the first segment, we had live music. The steel pan and the drums played along with her CD music that she had the models walking to. The other Tobago designer has a line that expresses itself as the Buku Reef. A lot of greenery, blues. I mean, when you look at it, you could actually see the Buku Reef in it.
You see, but this is what we're
the type
saying.
of clothing, the costuming. And when she was completed with that, we did an after event also as a show. And what was nice is that the beginning of the event, we had a lot of costuming in the red, white, and black that actually looked more like carnival costumes. And then by the after event, they changed our costuming into a lot of the greens and looked like wings with birds, and it was fantastic.
Sounds amazing, and this is the problem we have. We as diasporas don't know about any of this.
Yes.
There is, how can we, get the footage or know what to look like? Is there somewhere we can go and we can view this culture? For yourself, example, I'm very impressed with you. I tell you, this is the second time we actually physically meeting.
Yeah.
But you always are well dressed and always, your head ties and everything, because this is who you are.
Yes.
I'm
We
sure
are not afraid to express ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And I applaud you for that, for living in your truth. And actually, this is who you are.
Yes.
This is who you are. It doesn't matter where you go. And I see that. And thank you for that, because you remind us of this is your tradition and this is what you do.
We are very expressive people.
Yes.
In Trinidad and Tobago, and perhaps even in the Caribbean, very expressive people.
And there's no right or wrong, by the way.
There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. You just have to get onto the social media to see how expressive we are at times, not just in our wear. And but it is really about that. I know that my colleague, the Secretary of Tourism, would have also just taken a group to Scandinavia, where you now have direct flights from Scandinavia to Tobago.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. And she assures me that she's working on the flight from Canada to Tobago, because we can't be doing all the work here and persons don't have a way of making it to Tobago, directly to Tobago, to get to a feel of the culture. And I think, you know, it's important for us to just keep doing what we're doing. It may not be a fruit today, it may not be a fruit tomorrow, but certainly the day after tomorrow, we are expecting that it will be a fruit. People will know where they can come to reconnect with the culture, and reconnect with the culture in an island that also offers the environment that perhaps many of the other islands may offer. But in addition to that, we have not just sand and sea, we have the rainforest added to that. We have the birds, the fauna, the flora, and of course the rich culture.
I was fortunate actually when I went to Tobago that a friend of mine who was in the 4-H club growing up in high school, and they spent all the time in Tobago, so he went with us, and pretty much we got an actual tour of the whole island because he knew the island inside of where they used to camp, where they used to. So
And it's
for me,
small enough that you can cover it.
they used to walk from.
Small
I
enough.
can't remember from where to where,
Yeah.
but it was very intriguing to have it. So there's more than just sand and sea.
Yes, yes, very rich culture. A lot of
I walked from the airport to the
sightseeing.
hotel.
A lot of sightseeing with, like I said, the old forts. You have tombstones and places where persons. We have the story of this this woman who was the last slave to carry bricks from one of the seaside villages into the another village where they were building this Anglican church. And so once a year we have the ancestral walk celebrating this woman and the other slaves who would have toted bricks from the seaside into building the church where the church now resides.
I gotta ask you because I'm just remembering. Is there a tombstone of a mother?
Yes, the mystery tombstone.
Yes, I
that
actually went to the
exists.
mystery. Yes, I was
yes,
there.
yes,
I was there.
yes.
See, I was actually there.
The mystery tombstone that still
Yes.
exists. Yes. And we even have the Colanders who come back from year to year to ancestors who were part of residing in Tobago at some point. We have the Colan estate, and so the Colanders actually come back and do some kind of ceremonial celebration from time to time. It's very, very rich culture.
We talk about tourism, but we know tourism, like we said, is not only at the beach and the sand. There's so many different types of tourism. Just name off some of the different types of tourism that we have.
Well, we spoke in depth about the cultural and the heritage tourism that persons can come to experience. I always say that if persons can go to Mecca, they can certainly come and experience Tobago.
Oh, I agree.
As part of, you know, we have a very rich spiritual tourism there, and it's perhaps, you know, very untapped. But you also have those who are interested in getting married. You can get married on the beach, and we do a lot of that. The wedding tourism, the conference tourism. Right now we are building the Shore Park Cultural Complex that has the capacity of about 5,000 persons seated.
Good.
In addition to breakout rooms and other spaces that are available. So that is also an avenue there for conference tourism. And you know, the horticultural, oceanic. Some persons come to see our goats racing.
Goat racing?
Yes, we have the largest goat race.
Seriously?
Or the oldest
And where is this held?
goat race
It's
festival on the island.
Is it all over
during
the island?
Easter.
Is it over
It's Buku.
Buku? Okay.
Buku. So goat racing. Persons come from
Interesting.
all over to see goat racing in Tobago. That's a huge festival in Easter time. And of course, we have the Jazz Festival,
Yes.
a major jazz festival. We had John Legend over the Easter for Jazz Festival. That was just
And
extraordinary.
that's usually sold out.
Yes. And our jazz festival is a little bit different. We don't have it in one place. We have the large venue, the large artists will be at Pigeon Point. That's on the beach, jazz on the beach. In addition to that, we have throughout the communities across the week of the festivities, we go through the communities. So we have Speyside, where we normally have like a reggae jazz festival. We have Castara on the beach. We have the Esplanade in Scarborough, where you have the real type of what I would like.
Okay, I want to go to Tobago right now. Okay.
Jazz, New Orleans type jazz.
I want to go to Tobago right now. I swear to God.
What is amazing is that a lot of that jazz that we have in its original form, many Tobagonians actually sing and participate within that jazz. I think we now have even fashion that is aligned with the jazz.
Okay.
We have a private entity that has launched a fashion show within the jazz period, and it really has started to take some lift off, to lift off in a way. So
What about the
we
carnival
support that.
tourism?
Of course, there is carnival tourism. Many persons, when you hear carnival, you think about Trinidad. But Tobago has a carnival too. And our carnival is a little bit different. What we offer is not to compete with Trinidad, but we offer to give choice. We say, it is the opportunity to go reveling and relaxing in the same moment. So you could revel on the streets with the carnival and within minutes be on the beach relaxing at the seaside, and I think that is a combination that is unique and that we offer to persons. We also offer a carnival that has more heritage associated with it. We call it the traditional type mass.
Very
And
nice.
so you will see an expression of the sailors, some of the African type expressions of the mass, the mud mass. We have one of the largest mud mass movements in the Caribbean. And now we have different colors of mud that you can put on to play mass in. Yes, and not just in the Juve, but on the Carnival Tuesday as part of the mass. And so it is quite a different experience that persons have. It's more relaxed, it is a smaller environment, but no less exciting. And certainly we invite persons to be a part of that and to be a part of the whole experience. Carnival this year is occurring on the 16th and 17th of February. And we have quite a build-up from January into February. So it's not just the 2 days, but there's a whole build-up starting in January up until then.
Do you have specific from yourself, the House of Assembly Tourism, where they have programs or packages set up for people who want to come out to Carnival or any of these events out there? Is that something that
I know that the hotels do offer a package from time to time. I believe that you can find that on the Tobago tourism website.
what's the website? You could
Yes,
check it. It's okay. Just go and Google it and check it. It's what it is.
Yes.
It's what it is. But definitely, it's there.
Yes.
All the information is there.
Yes.
Absolutely. In saying this, I want you to go out there and actually, from your heart, and I know you've been speaking from your heart all the time, but a message from you to all the diasporas everywhere. What is you want to say to them? And to come out and see you as well.
You know, one of, we all have quotes that we come across from time to time, and I think one that has stuck with me is the fact that people without a past have no future, and our culture is our past, and therefore if we don't know our past, if we are not connected sufficiently to our past, we will not have a future in our future, and we will be lost to some extent within that future. I think it's important, as Caribbean people residing outside of your island, to find ways of having your children connect with their past, connect with their culture, so they can become stronger people, even within the communities of where you currently reside. Stronger people who understand the values, the traditions, and the practices that have us where we are today. Without those, we would not be here today. And we always have to appreciate our ancestors for what they would have done for us. And when you go through the history and understand what they did for us, it is only then that we understand what we must do now for future generations. And so I am urging and encouraging and inviting all of you that if you can travel, you find ways of coming back home and reconnecting with your past. And for those of you who cannot travel, we will certainly endeavor in any way we can to continue providing you with that stimulus, to continue the connection such that when the time comes and you can travel, you will find your way back home to us. And so with that, I wish everyone all the best. Yes, we are the minister bottled it last night and said, we are island people who bring happiness to others. And I certainly invite all of you to come back, stay connected, live the culture. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing and bringing us back memory lane and Tobago and even part of Trinidad. So I want to say you're welcome anytime, and I know we will be collaborating to bring this out to everyone. So on behalf of everyone here and myself, thank you so much. And you know what, until then, be safe and protect yourself when you're going to Tobago.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.